Thank you for joining us. We've got Daddy himself. It's Effy. Happy New Year. And Effy, how are you doing?
I am fantastic. I just got back into town here in Atlanta, Georgia from Atlantic City. I was tested twice before I went to Atlantic City to wrestle. I had my mask on the whole time, except for those, 15-minute sprees in the ring, and then it was back to masked up. But it was a wild time. It was a crazy way to kick in the new year, to be there with GCW, to be there with that kind of like cast of characters all around you. It was nonstop, and it was a good way to kick off a year that hopefully we're all hoping this year will be a little bit better, like even
Sure.
minute better. And so we're coming in a little positive, I think.
Well, it definitely looked like a great way to bring in the new year. I mean, I wish I could have been there. Unfortunately, many reasons that couldn't happen.
Oh, of course, of course. Yeah.
It might be a good 10 years before I set back foot in the US.
Don't say that. Don't say
Dude,
that.
we literally just before I started recording, I checked the news. We've just gone back into national lockdown, so we're stuck in our houses for another 6 weeks. Um,
This is not good. We gotta listen. And I already hear people. Someone told me, they said, "Well, I'm nervous to get the vaccine because it may it may hurt my chances of fertility in the future." And I'm going, 2 months ago, everybody's talking about I could never afford babies. I don't want babies. I got a
yeah,
cat already. I got a dog already. And now you're gonna say, okay, well, I may not have a baby in 20 years if I take this vaccine. Number one, probably not true. Number
yeah.
two, you didn't want that, baby. Take the vaccine. I'm trying to throw shows over here. We don't need more people. That's what messed us up in the first place.
Unfortunately, some people look for something to complain about in a positive, and the positive is we've got a vaccine which is being distributed. People will find something to complain about that. Unfortunately, that's just how things are these days. But hopefully, with the vaccine coming out and a few lockdowns here and there, we'll be back to some kind of normality by 2022. I'm hoping that,
Yeah, I mean,
especially, wrestling, to me as a fan, wrestling has kept some kind of normality in 2020. And going into 2021, at least we've had wrestling still. Because I feel like without
yeah.
wrestling, I'd have gone crazy. I don't know about yourself.
Well, I know for my, for me, it was like, thank God it was here, but it was also a time of like, okay, wrestling's gonna look different. And right now, I look around and like I joke because I did a match with Kurt Hawkins, and he worked for WWE for years. I believe he's a TNA now, and he said, there was only 35 people allowed in this venue, all masked, separated. He said, "Look around you. Is this your WrestleMania moment?" I go, bro, there's more people here than we're at WrestleMania. So just be excited. I could draw you a crowd.
That's
It's
so true.
We're all in this sort of customs wrestling world. And I think if we continue wrestling the exact same way and not acknowledging that it's a little different or a little weird or playing within those rules, and you see a lot of people, even from the UK, I saw that you were cordially invited with Charles Crowley bringing in everyone and doing this cinematic thing and bringing everyone in. If you're not willing to adapt and change a little bit, I'm not saying that, pure wrestling with 1,000 people in the building watching holds tete-a-tete is going to not come back. But
Mm,
in this moment, we can't sell those moments in the same way, and we can't act the same way if we're in the room. And we have to start making those differences to give our audience a reason to tune in, because now more than ever, when they can't really attend the live shows, they can't be there in person. How do we create something that still is destination viewing for them versus, well, I'll just watch Homeland or I'll just watch HBO Max?
sure.
What can we do that says this is still wrestling? It still has all these parts of wrestling that we love, the unpredictability, the excitement, the athleticism, the mystery of it, and still be without our audience within the room. There's changes we're going to have to start figuring out, and I think some companies have done a lot better than others.
Sure. I think I don't think any company in particular or of the top companies have handled it bad. It's just a lot of people have handled it differently. Like Ring of Honor still has no fans there, same with Impact, but I feel like it's still a good product to watch. But unfortunately, for some of those, I don't feel like they're bringing in any new viewers because of those restrictions.
Right. It's who can we hold on to? And that's
Yeah,
like even bigger than coronavirus. That's been a huge problem for me within the world of wrestling, because when I started going to these bigger conferences and these star casts and these like wrestle cons and some of these events where you're seeing more of the legends and you're seeing all these fans come in, our fanship as it stands, and who is watching us and spending the most money is dying off. They are in poor health. They have not kept good care of themselves. And I'm just speaking honestly, and people can say I'm wrong, but I'm not. And while we try to impress these people who were into the 80s wrestling, into the 90s wrestling, into these things that are what we consider the golden era of our business, we have spent so much time trying to impress these people that are dwindling at a very fast pace, not just because of COVID, but for a myriad of reasons. And I look around at how quickly things are catching with these new generations, whether it be like Gen Z kids on TikTok or whether it be, people on Twitch that I've gotten to interact with. There's a whole new way to consume media now that if wrestling doesn't keep up with it, and if wrestling doesn't make the decisions, to sometimes we have to put our guard down a little bit because we're wrestling. We protect wrestling. This business is this way. You do it this way. You keep our business a secret. And if we kind of get rid of those things and tuck our tail and drop the ego a little bit, there's a huge audience out there that would love what we do that just has no idea that any of this is going on at all.
That's so true. I mean, I've got plenty of friends, I'm sure everybody does, where like they're not wrestling fans and their idea of wrestling is so different to what it actually is. And if you show them what's happening outside of WWE, which is all they know, they love it. Like there's so many cool things on the independents, which I've shown my friends and they've gone, this is wrestling. Like this is awesome.
I think particularly, especially with like a good example is the Chicago wrestling scene, I think, because Freelance has done a very good job of it. And there's a few companies that have followed. There are a lot of people who come to freelance shows that sell out with 400, 420 people in the building, that's the only wrestling they watch. And they're from the area. They're from Chicago. This is a great place to come get some beers. They'll buy a t-shirt. They'll yell at the show. They'll get it out of their system. And in wrestling, sometimes we push away from that. We want the obsessive fan. We want the fan that keeps up with everything. We want the fan that knows every person that's coming out. And the second we can kind of say, what if we are all a part of an experience, kind of like the circus, kind of like what we are, and we are all spending a little bit of ourselves to bring a full experience to people that if they don't leave knowing your name, it's not the biggest deal in the world. If they leave and they go, oh my gosh, the pantyhose boy was crazy, but I still got money off their ticket. We were able to draw that way. It's more magic to me, and it creates an organic avenue for that growth versus, well, that wasn't anything like a Bret Hart match, and I don't think their holds are anything equivalent to Ric Flair. Yeah. Trying to meet up to those expectations and repeat the same thing it's very difficult to gain those new fans who aren't coming in with the knowledge to have those references.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it sounds like, just from what we've said so far, wrestling after the pandemic, whenever that is, the landscape's going to be different. I believe. Like, what have you seen so far? I mean, you've got experience in the business. You've seen how the pandemic has affected it firsthand. What changes do you think which have happened now? Which ones do you think will stay after the pandemic?
I think one of the big things that we're going to see is a lot more of the collaboration, which, I mean, wrestling has always played with the collaboration, whether it be, back to WrestleMania and having Cyndi Lauper there or having Aretha Franklin do the thing, and not just in music, but especially now. I say this as someone who uses Twitch a lot, so I'm going to use this as an example. I have found a community with professional gaming. I have found a community with people who, there are huge events for League of Legends. There are huge events for Fortnite. There are huge events for Overwatch where I see a lot of the same spirit of wrestling. And I see, like, Kenny Omega did the thing with CEO Gaming with their gaming tournaments. When we look at all these other entertainment forms and don't go, that's so different from us, we could never be like them, and sort of bring them in. I mean, in Atlanta, Georgia, in particular, there's a huge Dragon Con every year that is much like a Comic-Con. There's wrestling every time, and there's a lot of big name wrestlers that come through that they're not even themselves. They're willing to do the cosplay. They're willing to change it up. And it provides a lot more opportunity for wrestlers to not only grow and build their community and build new opportunities, but to say, hey, as a wrestler, this isn't the only thing you can do. What I found, within the communities of hosting, within acting, within all these things, we can bring people into wrestling by going into their worlds and using the skills we already have to bring them back to us and say, we can be a part of your world. Now come look at ours as it exists with you. And it's a big thing to think about, and it's a lot to take on. But if we just keep treating this business as, well, I'm booked to wrestle this day, and that's how we look at our career, we're going to be dying off at an even more rapid pace. We've got to move in a different way now.
That's such a good way of thinking about it, because obviously as an independent wrestler, you are your own business, you are your own brand. And like you said, a lot of people are just stuck in that mindset of, well, the only thing I can do as a wrestler is take bookings and wrestle on that day, and that's it. But as a wrestler, you are also so many other things already. You're basically, you know, I'm this no disrespect, you're basically a stuntman, actor, wrestler, athlete, everything in one person. And you can do so many
Right.
more things with that. So like you saying, you can go into games because there's a crossover there anyway. It's like the gaming and wrestling to me are kind of the same because it's like it's geeky in a way, nerdy, a
Hmm.
little bit nerdy, but they respect each other kind of thing because it's not,
Right.
so I think like you said, you can go into their world and bring them back. That's how you grow the business.
And we've got people in those worlds that are living kind of this same thing that we are, where we're going, okay, we might be in our 30s, 40s, 50s. We are not what our parents were. There's no age expectation of, oh, if you're a gamer, you better stop when you turn 32. There's no expectation of, if you're a wrestler, you better stop when you're 40. So we're seeing that our society is accepting more and more people and more lifestyles beyond just, hey, that's something for kids. Isn't wrestling for kids? Isn't gaming for kids? There are adults participating at a professional level and making money, and there are viewers who take all of this very seriously
Mm.
and want to see it shine. And it's just like there's so much excitement on both sides of it that, like, why don't we combine? Why don't we work harder together? And I think about just when I did the GCW shows this weekend. So I'm used to these long days in wrestling. I did the math one time. There was a day I flew to Los Angeles from Florida, and I wrestled a 12-minute match, and it was a 26-hour day that I was fully awake for, like from wake up to go to bed. And my travel is a lot easier now, but back then I had to do a lot more driving to the airport. So when I did the math, my match was like less than 1% of my entire day, like much less than 1% of my entire day. And I started thinking, how am I using this time better? And I think about like this weekend into the new year. I got a call last minute to do Wrestling Observer Live. I jumped on that. I was pushing and promoting the show on other platforms the whole time. I was there to help up and set up and call my match. I was there to do the match. When Brett needed me to do hosting at the end to count down to midnight, I was there and ready to do it. I had a match the next day. I did another interview that next day. Maximizing my time as possible. But
Mm.
sometimes once you're in here, I think we get excited that we're stars. We get excited that we're big shots. We're on the show. We made it this far. And we go, okay, well, the work is done for today. And I'm like, I'm in that mindset. And I hope everybody gets in that mindset of like, there are so many hours in a day. What can we get done? What can we knock out? Who are we not talking to that would help us out?
Yeah, instead of just working, like you said, for those 20 minutes,
Right.
doing all that training, everything just for 20 minutes, how can you maximize the 24 hours in your day to bring as much as you can to those 20 minutes? How can you get some new eyes on the product? And I
Exactly.
think I think it's awesome, just like GCW do it really well. We obviously run Ringsiders Wrestling, and when we're live tweeting out about GCW, we get the hardcore fans who love it. They're retweeting everything we post, but every so often it will kind of bleed into the normal Twitter, so to speak, and you'll get people commenting saying they won't have any idea what it is I've just posted, but they'll say, "This is awesome. What is this?" And I'm like, "This is wrestling. This is GCW." And it shows that there is the market there for these, I guess you'd call them casual fans or people who aren't even fans yet. If they just see it, they'll be a fan. And I think what GCW does better than anybody is bring out those characters, especially on the independents. And I'm not saying anyone's a character in particular, but
No, but as a crew, there's a wild
there's a
crew of
lot of characters.
characters.
Because it was the reason I've been so excited for this interview is because it was you and Ali who actually got me into GCW.
Oh my
Uh,
God, I love it.
I hadn't actually seen GCW before. In all this time, I just hadn't got around to it. But we started working with Fight TV. They gave us some codes for a giveaway, so I checked it out. And this was probably early last year. And I was like, this is good so far. But then you and Ali came out, and I was like, this is fucking awesome, man. Like, that was it. I was sold after that match. And I remember tweeting out saying, this is my favorite thing on the show. Um, but yeah,
Oh, I love
absolutely
it.
great. So
Thank you.
you got me into GCW, and I'm sure you could do the same for casual fans too.
Well, I think that's what's confusing to people is GCW is it's a guy, right? And he created GCW because he was just fed up in the Northeast. He was fed up of all the drama. He was fed up of all this stuff. And he was just like, can we just put on cool shows? Can we do cool stuff? But that spirit of GCW is we are all a part of decision-making team, and he sees when things connect with people, and GCW is willing to move fast. I'm not saying they're getting away from what they do. I mean, they do deathmatch wrestling really well, but when you look around at how wrestling is changing, they're not going to go, well, that's not what we do. They're going to go, if you have something that's getting people excited, that's making people feel crazy, come show it off here and see if it connects. Because a lot of times it may be something that's outside of your vision. It may be something luchador-esque. It may be the biggest high flyers, but it also might be someone like you said, like me or Allie, who's just going to go out there and you don't really know what's even going to happen. You can't really even predict what's next. And having that flexibility within the business to say, we know wrestling changes fast. We know stuff changes quickly. Let's get people on the shot. I mean, I think of this week, the card changed so much because we are trying to adhere to the COVID protocols. And if you didn't get your test back, if you thought you got a positive test, if something was going on, we're not having you on the show.
Yeah.
And we have to move quickly. And Ken Broadway was someone on this show this weekend who New Year's Day was there for the show. He had worked previously with House of Glory. He had some buzz on him and hadn't wrestled much during this pandemic. And I told him straight up, I go, nobody cares if you've wrestled during the pandemic. This has been the big pause. If you come out and you have the skills, everybody's ready to embrace you and not say, oh, well, he hasn't even wrestled in 8 months. But he was available. Brett knew of him. He got that match with ACH on New Year's Day. What a way to kick off the new year. Because even ACH afterwards to me, he said, yo, what a unique character, what an over character, what a guy who knows what he is. And that's what we need in wrestling now is guys who can go out, know who they are, guys and girls, and everything in between, who know who they are, who are committed to what they do and say, I may not be exactly what you think wrestling is, but I know I have something entertaining. And I know within this world, you'll at least give me the chance to show you that I have the skill.
Yeah, I think we're definitely getting away from in certain companies anyway, away from those kind of fans where it was like, I'll only watch it if it's a 60-minute Iron Man match between two technical wrestlers, you know, or I only like promos, you know, very specific types of wrestling. I feel like people nowadays are more open to watching different kinds of wrestling or like a melting pot of wrestling. And GCW is that, isn't it? Like you said, you've got the death matches, you've got great technical bouts, you've got characters. Everything is in GCW because I guess for a company called Game Changer Wrestling, you kind of have to be able to adapt. And there's been no year ever on record in wrestling where you've had to adapt more than last year.
The biggest year, of course. Yeah. And now the big question is, because I mean, we always have to be moving forward. The big question now is, okay, these people who are just catching clips of us, who are just seeing these little moments, how do we fill them in so quickly? I mean, you think about a generation that is scrolling. We're scrolling everything. We are not focusing on anything too long. We're getting a few minutes of stuff. It's either in our ears or it's moving past our face. How easily can we fill people in so that they want to come in and see the rest of it? So that they go, okay, I saw this clip. Now I can click here. I can understand what's going on. And now I can jump right in and not have these questions because you want them to be able to go in and go, okay, I think I know what's going on here. Or I think I know what's coming next with the most ease possible. Because now our big issue is it's not the product itself. It's getting those eyes and getting the distribution and focusing people back to the bigger picture of it once they get that little taste or that little bite or whatever catches their attention. How do we hold on to that? And how do we bring them in to be fans like the people who are, you know, really into GCW?
Yeah, like you said as well, people have short attention spans. So with that said, how important do you think it is with like GIFs nowadays, you know, where people post like a 5-second GIF of a move and share that and it gets like 2,000 retweets and it goes viral, so to speak. How much do you think GIFs have helped to like attract new fans? Because I'm guessing people just see a move and like, what's this? And then they check out GCW, for example. So do you think that's played any part?
It's definitely grown viewership. I think we can't even look whole scale now at how much it's helped us to be able to have those little clips that move so quickly. And with all social media, it's all based on sharing. And what I've always kind of said is like, you can make whatever you want and you can pay people to share it. But the things that move quickly, the things that go viral, the things that catch on are good things that are interesting or entertaining. So as long as on the whole, these things are entertaining, those little moments are going to keep popping up. I don't think we necessarily think fully in the realm of gifts, but I think we think of hey, if this is going to go off and we have this much time and this many moments, let's fill this up and let's see how many moments we can get on tape. And sometimes it's not, oh, well, every move has to be off the roof. A lot of those gifts that I have that go bigger are me crotching someone or me
I,
getting my ass slapped or
I,
me getting flipped around. And that brings in this audience that are maybe from my world, that are maybe sexual or gender minorities who don't know that wrestling is okay for them. And when they can see people like myself, I know I'm ridiculous, but that ridiculousness opens up the eyes, and then they can come in like with Effy's Big Gay Brunch. What I did on my show was exactly what I expected to do. It was gaga, it was stupid, it was over the top, it was sexual, it was rated R, it was 10 minutes. God bless. But when you watch the rest of my show with my stupid face plastered on it, you saw Still Life versus Dark Chic in a non-binary versus transgender magical, it doesn't matter the gender or sexuality, just an incredible wrestling match
hmm
and an entertaining wrestling match. And you got to see things like we had an 8-man tag where I put my gang of dudes, the SGC, versus the 4 toughest LGBTQ people I could find. You had matches that were tag teams between women and men. You had all kinds of crazy stuff that if you were caught in by my stupid antics and saw it, we were introducing you to a whole world. And if we are all working on bringing in our little bit of that world, people are going to see that there's another option for entertainment. I mean, I look at drag. We had a drag performance in the middle of the show, and they were 2 queens who worked out locally and were from Indianapolis, Indiana. They came in, they got to do a segment with Tony Deppen. Now they've shared that with all of their drag queen friends, and Tony Deppen getting hit by a chair is now all over their social media and all over their world. They're going, what is this? What's happening?
yeah.
And they're going, it was a gay wrestling show. We're going to have more of them. Come look at this. And by not being afraid to reach outside our world, we created another giftable moment. And we also created it within the world of wrestling with people you wouldn't expect to see in a ring.
Absolutely. And speaking of you said about the Effie's Big Gay Brunch, and I don't know if you've heard of them before. There's a group of drags on Twitter called the Nobodies.
Yes, my
I
besties. I
love
love
the
them.
Nobodies. Oh, you know them.
I've hung out plenty of evenings with the nobodies out in Brooklyn.
That's awesome, man. I found their channel by accident, so to speak, and I was like, this is awesome because I'm kind of interested to see what their view on wrestling is. Like, what do they look at differently to I do, or what do we look at the same? And it's kind of a great way to learn about like how other fans see it. And I just love their passion for it because everything they're so passionate about wrestling, but from in some ways different, and I love that.
Well,
Uh,
there's also a no apologies, like fully unapologetic viewpoint from them, which is we don't know all your old stuff. We're not learning all your old stuff. If we
yeah,
do, it's on our time and we'll learn it at our space. And we're not afraid to give criticism while also saying we enjoy this. And one of the best things they do is what they call the ring gear remix to me, which
yes,
is when they're looking. I listen, one thing I always say to wrestlers is when they think of each other as competition, which you can't fix it. We're always going to think of each other as competition, but I say for us to spend this much money on dumb spandex, we honestly cannot be arguing about this stupid craft. Okay, we can't go out and spend $300 on sparkly spandex and then argue with each other about who's better at this because you were match 3 and you were match 7. No one cares. They're watching. But because of that, we're usually not the most self-aware bunch some of the times, and what we think is cool is sometimes not the coolest thing. We sometimes have bad taste in wrestling, and so to have outside eyes from another world of fashion, from the world of drag, where
yeah,
this is their life. They are professional people that perform in nightlife, that do drag, that cover drag, that DJ music. They have a completely different look about what
yeah,
could be done and what could look cool in the world of wrestling, and we need to not be afraid of their opinion just because they don't know, who Buddy Landell is.
yeah,
It's
absolutely. Uh,
their input is has been very helpful, and you see that this world of sort of gay wrestling that is combined with drag, Uncanny Attractions in particular, which has done these Brooklyn shows, which has had the nobodies perform and do commentary amongst the wrestling. Those events have been really successful in places like Brooklyn because once again, people are coming out and going, yeah, I don't know who Mankind is versus Cactus Jack versus Mick Foley versus Dude Love, but what a crazy show we just saw. There were drag queens, there was fighting, there was booze, and everybody wins because I get paid more when we sell out. I can ask for more money when there's 1,000 people versus, oh, we've got 35 people and we're hoping for the stream. And the streams will catch on because they go, okay, even doing the venue, okay, even having the collaboration with the House of Yes, which is historically a nightlife rave dance party drag venue in Brooklyn, having a wrestling show there, there's a trust in that venue that people will show up because they go, we've had crazy times here before. Why wouldn't this be just as fun? When we only think of VFW halls or warehouses or high school gyms as where wrestling happens, we limit ourselves so much. When we actually go out and ask in the community, we find out there are businesses who would benefit from us, and we would benefit greatly from being a part of their business, and we can't be scared to go outside our little fence.
Yeah, I actually had the chance to speak with Daniel Mitchell from Uncanny Attractions a couple of weeks ago. I've got a lot of time for him. I think he's brilliant and does a lot of good work. And I think he's done a lot with helping the typical fan on Twitter, for example, see that there is a different side to wrestling. It's not just as black and white as we see it. Like, just because I've had a certain experience of wrestling growing up, it doesn't mean it's the same for everybody. And I guess that applies to everything in life, really. But it's just cool to see different views on wrestling. And like with the Nobodies, for example, they're more interested sometimes in attires or crotch watch, and and
or
I'm
the
like,
big entrances and the glam of all of that,
yeah, the pageantry. And I love seeing these other points of views of wrestling that aren't typical to my own, because that's how I don't know, I just think it's awesome that so many different people around the world can enjoy the same thing regardless of the background.
And like, here's the problem. We cannot avoid capitalism, but I'm a believer in like self-capitalism and capitalism that is based on, I try to be as what is the best way to put it? Sustainable. I try to be a sustainable capitalist, okay? I pay extra now for the biodegradable bags to send my merch. I try not to oversell myself. Like, there are things you can do to live within this capitalist world, and I think, and I'm just saying this to preface this, the money that you spend coming to the show, if you only like the entrances, is equal to the money you spend at the show if you like the mat technician grappling and you think you have to know everything. Every dollar is even to me. And if that's the part of wrestling you like, then great. I hear from people who say, I just like going to wrestling because I can scream for 2 hours and get it out of my system. I can yell at people. And you think about day to day, I've gone through days where like I drive, I fly, I get to the venue, and the first time I'm speaking is 4 p.m. that day, and I've been up since 6. We don't often as humans spend enough time yelling and just being wild and letting it out of ourselves. And that to me is a valid reason to come to wrestling. I wish you could yell at the movies, like I love being interactive with everything, but at wrestling you can come and scream and yell, and like that is worth $20 sometimes to just drop the bill and go, can I just yell at somebody and call them a loser and scream at this guy for being evil, because it would feel good in my soul.
Yeah, there's no gatekeeping on. Well, there shouldn't be any gatekeeping on wrestling.
And I mean, the minute we gatekeep is the minute we're stabbing ourselves in the hands, asking why it hurts. It's silly. And I'm not saying we don't need to be trained professionals and we don't need to go through those stakes, but there is some weird balance in the wrestling world of like, you should take a certain amount of punishment before you're allowed to succeed. And that's crazy, because when I look around, what I should see and what didn't happen for me right away and what I think is better now is, hey, this kid's doing really well. They're getting a reaction. They're moving up in the ranks. Instead of going like, no, they need to do this for another month before they can think of that, you go, hey, I have all these skills and they're helping us sell tickets. Let's teach them as much as we can to make sure they can succeed in these places. And if they don't, let's get them back to the drawing board and help them learn. But this mentality of like tearing everyone down or beating people up because you think they haven't earned the spot they're in, it's different than drag in one way. A drag queen can walk out as a drag queen and perform. If I have a wrestling match, there has to be one other person there, if not multiple other people, and I need them all to be able to perform and connect with a crowd. We should be helping each other, because if I'm cool and you blow it the whole time and I'm not willing to help you get to a level where you can't, then I'm only hurting myself. And we have to once again tuck the egos and say, it's so silly that I say that I'm the one saying tuck the ego because I'm so silly in the ring, but like, once again, it's 0.6% of my day to be in that ring. All of this other time we can be spending getting things out. And even at these small shows, like, I couldn't hear what you said. Shut up, Siri. Oh my God, this is my problem. I see kids who think like now in wrestling that like, okay, well, I have to drive 12 hours to this show, or I need to pay for my own flight to get to this show, or I need to do this in this show. Look at who is giving you opportunities now and ask yourself, hey, could we not get 20 or 30 more people in this building? Or could we not get 100 more people to view it if we went out on our own and put in the effort? But sometimes I think as wrestlers, we think once we've gotten an opportunity, once we've gotten a spot, that's where our effort ends. We got the spot. But to me, it's like, that's where everything begins. The moment anybody gives you anything to work with, how far can we take this and how big can we make it?
Well, speaking of how far can you take it? Jamie was meant to be on this interview. Jamie, who you've been speaking
Oh,
with, he sends his apologies.
it's okay. I'm glad you're here too, though.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure speaking with you. But he did say to me earlier, is like, please send my apologies, but can you make sure you ask him about Satanic Panic?
Oh my
We're
God.
we're huge fans of Danhausen. Think he's incredible, as evil as he is. But what was that like teaming with Danhausen? Because you've got, I mean, like you said yourself, you're ridiculous in the ring. Danhausen is too. That must have been a lot of fun
Well,
teaming with Danhausen.
it's the best. And see, I get to tell the bigger story because Danhausen's so deep in the world now. I get to tell the bigger story, which is we have known each other a very long time before Danhausen was Danhausen. Back when he was Donovan Danhausen, he was wrestling in Florida, and we were seeing each other a lot on these indie shows, and he was very like CM Punk esque and very like kind of fitting that mold.
Hmm.
And I think there's even a picture where like I am like trying to like shake my ass while he's doing a waist lock and he looks just dead in the face. And he was going to quit wrestling. He left Florida, he moved to Michigan, he moved back home to where his parents were. He was done with it and he said to himself, I'm only doing what I want to do, and if it works it works, if it doesn't it doesn't. And he started doing really dark stuff and crazy stuff, and I just said, you got to just keep being weird as shit. Like, just keep being weird as shit. And so he just kept being weird as shit in a way that who could have even imagined? I mean, it's like perverted Pee Wee Herman, no swearing, crazy, to the point where, like, someone who was going to quit wrestling because he was tired of people telling him what to be is now in Hot Topic and was as an independent because he got the Hot Topic deal before they announced his Ring of Honor signing. So
Mm.
he is an independent wrestling superstar in Hot Topic. He did that on his own because he was tired of people telling him how to be. It was not working. And I think for young stars, find the advice that is good, because there is advice that is good and is meant to help you, and then there is advice that is given to you, and sometimes it is from your trainers and sometimes it is from people who are bigger than you, that is meant to keep you down and meant to keep you at a mediocre level. It is things that sound right and sound correct but is going to not get you anywhere. So I'm not saying don't take advice. I'm saying take all the advice you get, look at it objectively. You say, okay, thank you, sir. And then you get to pick the advice that works for you and what makes you happy and what makes you feel okay. Because the second he took the step to say, I'm not going to be who anybody else wants me to be or who they think I should be or what I think I should be to be signed in wrestling, he actually found his success. And so us meeting as Satanic Panic was sort of this like reunion of sorts where it started with a singles match and I go, buddy, we need to be together. He came up with the name. He was like, does this work for you? And I was like, oh my God, yes. And as it stands, like in a year, we've had a total of 3 matches, but we've sold a lot more than 3 T-shirts. And it's the
Yeah.
idea of being able to create content together, to create moments together that are bigger than just what you see in the ring. And the fan likes that, to be able to have more of a story than what is that 10 minutes in the ring that
Hmm.
is connectable and that is real and that is something that's exciting and different. And people have gone nuts over it. I mean, Danhausen specifically, but I've got a lot of tag teams if you haven't figured it out. My boyfriend
Yeah.
roasted me. He said, all you do is join tag teams. And I go, yeah, because that's how you get booked.
It's true. It's how you get booked and it's how you sell merch.
Exactly. Let's do a tag team. I like being in groups. Trust me.
But absolutely brilliant. Jamie was like, "You've got to ask about it," because he loves Danhausen too, and I think it's brilliant that he stayed true to himself, even when he signed with the most pure technical wrestling-based company in North America, Ring of Honor. He's still Danhausen. He's not gone
Well,
back
and
to being regular human Danhausen. He's still
no, not at
himself.
all. And that's a big story too, is it doesn't invalidate any of the pure wrestling. It doesn't invalidate any of the other athletes there, but it is that big circus. And like when you have these matches that are emotionally exhausting and pull you out and are very focused, and you have to be in and you have to really be watching what's going on to understand the struggle between these athletes and these holds and what is true catch as catch can wrestling. When you have these moments where you get a Danhausen and you get these, I don't even want to call them breaks, but these other worlds that you can enter, it is cleansing and it is helpful for the rest of that card. And we have to be mindful of each other. I'm so excited that I got to be in a ring with Blake Christian, but I'm even more excited when I'm not in the ring with Blake Christian, but he's on the same show as me, because he is so physically athletic and capable and incredible and creative in a way that is different to me, that it is beneficial for us both to be on a show together. I'm not saying just having him on a show isn't perfect, but when you have both of us there, there's such a difference in styles and difference in the way we approach wrestling that it kind of is a palate refresher to each other. And I also just like watching matches like that. Like getting to watch Blake Christian versus Lee Moriarty New Year's Day was like, I'm over in the corner going, holy mackerel. It was incredible. But there's a second benefit to both of us being there.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, it adds a variety to a show. And I've been to shows where it is all technical wrestling or all one style of wrestling before. And after the first couple of matches, you're like, this is great. And then after maybe at match number 8, you are kind of worn out. But when you have got that variety, it picks you up a bit. You've had that, like you said, a palate cleanser, and then you can. It's easier to digest a show in total. So yeah, I'm completely with you on that. I think it's good that you see it like that as well. Like other people who do the flips and stuff, they compliment you just as much as you compliment them, and it's something you can work together on.
I mean, even Hamlet has moments of humor within it, right? You know,
Exactly.
like if you took out the funny parts of Hamlet, it'd be unwatchable, if we're being honest. But if someone wants to show me that and prove me wrong, please. But I doubt it. You need these little places where you can go, oh, okay, whew. You know, it's just that's the way the human spirit wants to take things in, and we have to give them all sides of that. Now, it's great though when they follow and they go, okay, I know who Effy is, and then I can come out and surprise them with something or go in a different direction. But it's also nice to come into a room and go, I'm just going to be Effy and introduce myself tonight, but also create an environment where if you see me 100 times, it's equally as interesting.
Well, what I was going to say is that I don't even think we've scratched the surface, even after nearly 40 minutes on what we could speak about. So it would be awesome if we can get you on again at some point in the near future, because I know Jamie really wants to speak to you too. So if we can get you on again down the line, amazing. I still want to talk about your team with Ali, your future goals, aspirations, and everything like that. But it's been absolutely brilliant speaking to you. I made a list at the end of last year, and it's got 12 names on it, and Effy was one of them. So I can actually tick one off my list for this year.
I love it.
I'm off to a good start this year.
Yeah, this is great.
I'm macking out, man. I hate saying that word.
We're accomplishing this year, and I'm glad we can make this happen. This rules.
This is actually my first interview of the year, so
I had to watch myself at the end of the year because I started doing these interviews, and I would get like a little too stoned, and I would just start talking about how I was going to sue everyone. So this one was a little more positive, but they would just like bring somebody up who'd said something about me, and I'd be like, I'm suing them. I'm suing them.
It just becomes a shoot interview every time.
There was one interview in particular where I think I said I was going to like sue 4 different people, and it all was 4 different articles, and I was like, God, this is just going to keep slow burning me up.
The dirt sheets will pick that up every time.
Every time! I forget to listen to what I say.
But hopefully they'll have something more positive to take away from this one if they watch it. So we'll definitely be in touch, get you back on. But thank you so much for coming on, Effy. Is there anything you want to promote, your upcoming shows, or where can we get your merchandise?
Yeah, so everywhere you find me is Effy Lives, EFFYLIVES. That's Twitter, that's Instagram, that's also Pro Wrestling Tees. If you're in the UK, I have locally shipped merchandise from On The Gear. I believe it's onthegear.co.uk. I've never stepped foot in the UK, and I've sold some merch there, and I think that's a wonderful accomplishment. But I want to be there. I was supposed to be there in August. It was going to be so great. GCW was doing some shows. We were going to stay a while. But, plans change. But the big one is Twitch. Come find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/EffyLives. Monday nights at 8 p.m. in America. There's no other wrestling shows happening except for mine. Monday, not Raw. Don't turn on, the cable shows. Monday nights, they belong to Effy. We're catching up in the ratings. We're going to catch Vince. No other show matters. It's independent wrestling for at least 3 hours. If I'm stoned enough, we'll go 3.5 or 4.
I think I'm gonna check that out just based on that. Like, I
It's
think
rowdy.
yeah, I think I'm sold. I saw you mention it on Twitter, but
Yes, it
that
is.
sounds brilliant. If you're stunned talking about wrestling, then I'm in.
It's been so cathartic because I for my whole life was brainwashed into like Mondays I watch wrestling at 8 p.m. and now I was in a position where I was like morally unable to consume that wrestling anymore because of Saudi Arabia, and I said to myself, let's just watch wrestling with all my friends in it, and people were like, oh shit, this is crazy, and our viewership has been like out of control. It's been nuts, and tonight is our first one of the year. I know that's super late for the UK, but that's the best time for me.
Dude, I wanted to do a podcast a few years ago where I get high and talk about wrestling and call it high flying.
Oh
And
man,
yeah.
still a great idea.
So that's basically what you're doing. So I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, it's a
but
wild time.
but yeah, man, absolute pleasure speaking with you, and hopefully speak to you again soon. We've been Ringsiders. This is Effy. See you next time.